When you look at the Seattle Seahawks in 2012, I thought this team before the season was going to finish second in the division, and I thought they had a chance to maybe win 8 or 9 games, in part because Russell Wilson is the type of guy that I looked at as a third round pick as a quarterback, that if he minimizes his mistakes and keeps his team in games, that the defense that's there around him would find ways to win games. Or Russell Wilson would be the type of guy that's a good enough leader that a team thinks that they're better than they really are. They play above themselves and they really come up and surprise you. And I think that's a great way to really summarize the Seattle Seahawks team in 2012. I mean, there was a point in time towards the end of the season, they were kicking the shit out of people. They kicked the hell out of the damn 49ers late in the year. There were people thinking that this Seattle Seahawks team with a rookie quarterback was perhaps the team that was most likely to go to the Super Bowl from the NFC, if not win the whole damn thing. It's a hell of a turnaround. I mean, you look at this team. They started off the year 6-5. You were having games where Russell Wilson looked solid, and then you had other games where he kind of looked like a rookie, and it looked like they weren't trying to do too much to really rock the boat or anything. Well, like I said, they won their last 5 games, and they were hot. I mean, this was a really hot football team that really played above itself, and to the point, like I said, they had that 3-week stretch where they just blew people out totally. Thanks, Bears, for getting the Seahawks off and rolling. The Bears have a tendency to do that over the years, get a team hot just at the right time. The Seahawks ended up finishing 11-5, second in the NFC West, and they were in a position all the way up until the last week of the season where they could have potentially won the division. And they've got the 25th overall pick in this upcoming April's NFL draft. On the offensive side of the football, to me, technically, Marshawn Lynch is the best player on their offense, and he was a beast again this year. 1,590 rushing yards, 11 touchdowns. Pete Carroll loves a between the tackles, physical, pounded out, ball control offense, and Marshawn Lynch enables him to run the type of offense that Pete Carroll likes. And Lynch is a beast. Well, let's face it, he's not AP, but out of that draft class, he ended up being a beast in and of his own right, got his head straight, and the Seahawks are now reaping the benefits of it, clearly. But when you look at Russell Wilson, you thought the Seahawks before the start of the season were going to roll with Matt Flynn as their starting quarterback. And then they take Russell Wilson in the 3rd round. And it's one of those things where you can understand the pick, but it was like, you just brought in Matt Flynn. Why would you draft a guy in the 3rd round as well? I guess when you don't have a franchise quarterback, there's nothing wrong with bringing in as many people as possible. And sometimes for us as fans and other organizations, etc., we shouldn't question moves like that as much as we do sometimes. They're not as stupid as we think they are, because until you get that quarterback position solved, you're always looking for guys to bring in. You're always looking for that answer. And obviously, as it bore out, Russell Wilson was the man, and he was the right draft choice 100 out of 100 times. And as the year progressed, I thought he really grew as a quarterback. I thought we saw more progression out of Russell Wilson than we did any of the other rookie quarterbacks this year, whether that be Luck or RG3 or Tannehill. I think he showed the most progression from the beginning to the end of the season. He ended up with 3,118 passing yards, 26 touchdowns, only 10 interceptions. So he did a good job of managing the game and not turning the ball over a lot. And he really was a dual threat quarterback. He ended up with 489 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. So he really impacted the game both in terms of the passing game and the running game as well. It was very difficult towards the end of the season to defend the Seattle Seahawks offense. While they didn't have the greatest playmakers on the outside, as evidenced by their 27th overall ranking in passing yardage, they were still a dual threat team. Russell Wilson could beat you with his arm, or he could beat you with his feet. And that's very scary. The future looks pretty bright for the Seattle Seahawks. Defensively, this was a really, really good football team, and at times they were a dominant defense. They finished 1st in the league in points allowed and 4th overall in yardage allowed. And you look at their drafting of Bruce Irvin with the 15th overall pick was very stunning, and I made fun of it at the time. And part of the reason was because he was a one-dimensional pass rusher, and he established that that's what he is. He's a one-dimensional pass rusher. But by God, he's really good at that one dimension. And you have guys like Chris Clemens have a great year. That defense was just stacked. It was loaded. It really helped that you have 2 corners on the outside like Richard Sherman and Browner. I mean, these guys are beasts. Big, physical, jam you at the line guys, and it makes it a lot easier for the front seven to impact the game because, in part, they get bought more time because of these two great physical corners on the outside, not to mention the great safety they have in Earl Thomas. Again, this is a Seahawks team that did a lot of things right, especially as the year went on in 2012, and they almost got to the NFC Championship game. It took a last-second comeback by the Atlanta Falcons in order to knock the Seahawks out. This is a very scary team and could get even scarier in the year or two to come. When you look at the 5-year draft history of the Seattle Seahawks, maybe we shouldn't have been as surprised that the Seahawks went 11-5 because they had two really strong drafts. That was the 2012 draft and the 2010 draft. Now, when you look back at, let's say, 2008, you have guys like Red Bryant and Owen Schmidt, Justin Forsett. You have some players on there, but no real standout studs. 2009, you have Max Unger, the center, and that's about it. But then you get to 2010, and they get Russell Okung. They solved their left tackle issue that they had. They get Earl Thomas. They get Golden Tate. They found some guys. I'll put it that way. In 2011, they get guys like Wright, and they get guys like Richard Sherman in the 5th round. And then when you come to 2012, you get guys like Bruce Irvin and Robert Wagner, who had a great rookie season. I really liked him out of Utah State. Same thing with his teammate that they took in the 4th round, Robert Turbin. Russell Wilson in the 3rd round obviously is the big standout there. To be able to potentially get a franchise quarterback in the 3rd round is absolutely huge. Now, this organization's been hurt with first-round busts like Aaron Curry and Lawrence Jackson. And their 2011 draft, they need more out of their 1st and 2nd round picks. In particular, 1st round pick James Carpenter needs to stay healthy. If they can get more out of that 2011 class with the 1st and 2nd rounders, his team could even be that much more scary going into 2013. But it's based off of the strength of those 2010 and 2012 draft classes, where they not only found good players, but they found impact players, and in the case of guys like Okung, Earl Thomas, Russell Wilson, and I'd even argue to a lesser degree Robert Wagner, they found some stars all throughout the draft. Richard Sherman as well, obviously, a 5th round pick, and he might have been the best corner in all of football this year. Now, heading into the offseason in this upcoming April's NFL draft, with Russell Wilson establishing himself as the guy, and maybe Matt Flynn could potentially be traded off to somebody else, or maybe they'll keep him, who knows, you would assume that they lack a true number 1 wide receiver. Their tight end play isn't spectacular. Maybe they could use some more help on the offensive line. That building around Russell Wilson would be the priority in April. And I understand that. And, I'm a very big proponent of, if you have a quarterback, you surround him with pieces that help him first. That's your priority. But then I look at the Seattle Seahawks and I look at Pete Carroll's history. He is a defensive guy. And I look at this defense and I say, this defense, you could argue, was one of the league's very best easily, and is that far away from being a true dominant defense. So what would I rather do? Would I rather spend a couple of picks to just improve the offense a little bit? Or would I want to spend a couple of picks on improving that defense to the point where it's just flat out scary and that defense wins a bunch of games for us regardless of the offense? I may be an advocate in this particular situation of shoring up the defensive side of the football. This is a team, especially with Chris Clemons tearing his knee up late in the year, but even before that I still felt needed another real edge rusher on the outside that could play every down. Because Bruce Irvin, again, like I said, he's a great KGB, Kabir Bajabia-Milla type of pass rusher. But he is a situational pass rusher and nothing more, unless you're playing in a 3-4 defense. If you're playing in a 4-3, Bruce Irvin is not going to be, in my opinion, a starting defensive end in the NFL, because he'll get destroyed in the run game. You need to find a guy that you can sit there and play every down. If Chris Clemons comes back, then you have both of them playing at end. You bring Bruce Irvin in, you can rotate one of those guys in as a tackle on 3rd down and passing situations, and now you've got a potentially New York Giants-like lethal pass rush out of your front 4. I also think the Giants would be, the Seahawks would be well advised to find a defensive tackle early in this draft that could generate an interior pass rush. I think that's something that's missing from that defense. As good as their pass rush may be, and as good as their defense might be, if they had a beast in the middle of that defensive line, it would really impact things both in the running game and in the passing game. They would become a true dominant defense. So I would expect the Seahawks' philosophy going into April to be that they will take the best player available in the first round. I would tend to believe, based off of their draft position, because they've got the 25th overall pick, that they're going to go defensive, whether that means they're going to take a defensive end or a defensive tackle. That's where I would expect them to go in the first round. Now, they could surprise me and say this wide receiver or this offensive lineman was just too good to pass up, but I think there's wide receiver value in the second, third, and fourth rounds in this draft. And I don't think for the Seahawks, you might consider it a need, but I don't think it's such a pressing need where the Seahawks need to go away from a best player available formula. And in particular, because of the Seahawks being this close to having hands down arguably the best defense all around in all of the NFL, I would not be surprised to see two of their first 4 picks or two of even their first 3 picks to be spent on the defensive line and really making that a force to be reckoned with for years to come.